Hi guys, I'm Dan, this is Kai. We are the directors at Crescent Mortgages. Really good one today, could save you a lot of money. How to negotiate the best price when purchasing a house or a flat. Okay, as always, just to remind you that we're not YouTubers, are we?
Not yet.
We're qualified mortgage brokers, CMAP qualified and regulated mortgage brokers. So if you need assistance with your mortgage or you have questions for us, just get in touch, give us a call, head over to the website, send us an email or leave something in the comments and we will come back to you. Negotiations.
Okay, yeah.
It's important.
Yes, yeah, huge part of the process.
We did actually cover this in a previous video as part of some additional tips, but actually it's such an important one, we're giving it its own video. So how to negotiate the best price. Now, obviously it will very much depend on the property you're looking at, the amount of interest, you know, how aggressive or keen to sell the property the estate agent is, but there are some pretty generic rules that you can follow as a really good kind of foundation and place to start to give you the best chance of getting the best price.
Yeah, best price, yeah.
First of all, why is negotiating so important? And I'm going to ask that question and I'm also going to answer it. So why don't you just shut up?
You just carry on. No, you carry on.
I'll let you know when I'm ready for you. I think sometimes when you fall in love with a property, you start to think, actually, look, if I pay an extra 5 grand, is it really the end of the world? Because your deposit is a percentage, you're maybe not going to feel that so much. Because the mortgage is spread over so many years, you're maybe not going to feel that so much. But just bear in mind, for every £1,000 that you save on that purchase price, that is an extra £1,000 of equity that you have in that property. Yes, you might not feel it to start with, but when you come to sell that property, if you've knocked off £4,000 from the purchase price, you're going to have an extra £4,000 coming out of that property when you sell it, whether that goes into your bank account or gets put towards the deposit of the new property whenever you upsize in the future. So really, really important to get the best possible price. And I guess the other thing just to highlight is, and I'll jump in on this one as well.
Got it.
Well, actually, why don't you jump in?
I don't know what you're going to say.
Okay, the tips that we give you very much depend on the market at the time. Okay. So this is kind of common sense. If you are in a really busy market where there are thousands of other buyers in the area looking for similar properties to you, it's going to be harder for you to get the price down. Naturally, supply and demand. But actually, if you're in a market, and this may change, but at the time of filming coming into 2024, it's a bit more of a buyer's market, isn't it? Interest rates are higher, which means less people want to move. So supply and demand, there's probably going to be less people looking to buy right now, which means that you maybe will have more leverage to negotiate a better price. Obviously, it does depend on your area. Some areas are kind of the market's more buoyant than others. Yeah. But just bear in mind, it does very much depend on the market at the time, which I guess leads us into the first tip. Do you know what that is?
I'm going to say it's length of time on the market.
So do your homework.
Hi, I'm Kai, by the way, in case you... length of time on the market. So if a property's been on one day and you're viewing it, you don't know if that property's going to fly off the shelf or not, in which case it's kind of hard for you to know, can I try and make a really cheeky offer, 20, 30, 40 grand under asking? It's hard to know. You could, but hard to know. If it's been on there for 6 months, then it clearly shows that there's not a huge interest in buying it. Maybe it's overpriced, maybe there's something wrong with it, maybe it's just market conditions. It could be all sorts. Thank you. Saving that one. And if it's been on there a long time, that should give you confidence. That should give you confidence that if you go and make...
fall down.
if you make an offer on that property that is undervalued and you're trying to get a really low price for it, that it's unlikely somebody would swoop in the day after you've made the offer and kind of take it out of your feet. Or under your feet. Whatever.
And I guess it also, aside from that, if a property's been on the market for 6 months, they're not getting the attention and the offers that they want. So the seller's almost got no choice but to start to accept smaller offers. Otherwise that property could be on the market forever. So when you see the advertising of the property, whether that's directly with the estate agent or potentially on Rightmove, I don't know if legally they have to put this, but they will almost, I think maybe they do, they always put when the property was first listed. So again, you can check that. If it was a few months ago, could be room to negotiate a much lower price. And it normally will tell you if the property's been reduced as well. That's a big one. So if it's been on the market, they've not had the relevant attention, they've had to drop the price, again, there could be room for some negotiations. They're clearly not getting the attention and the interest on the property that they were hoping for. So I guess that's tip one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
Do you know what
I'll
two
go for two
is?
as well. Yeah, fine. Highlight your own strengths and weaknesses, I guess.
Not weaknesses.
Yeah, actually don't highlight your weaknesses, sorry. Your strengths, play to your strengths. So things like your deposit or your first-time buyer status. If you are first-time buyer, probably the best one, or chain-free. You might not be a first-time buyer, maybe you're buying your next property and you've already sold. But if you can say to an estate agent, I've got no chain, I can buy. A chain is when there are multiple transactions involved for everything to go through. So you've got to sell your property to buy the next one, they need to sell theirs to buy another one, and so on and so forth.
But if you're a first-time buyer, naturally you won't be selling a property, so there's no backwards chain behind you, which the estate agents like. It's less things can go wrong. Estate agents are they're obsessed with speed, aren't they? They're so needy.
Yeah, well they get paid by the vendor, don't forget.
Yeah.
So when the sale goes through, they get their money. Until that point, they don't get anything.
Yeah.
So if it goes through in record time, they get money quicker, another one off their books, you get your new home, they get a happy vendor.
Which I guess ties us in with the third point, which is make sure you've got an agreement in principle ready to go. So make sure that before you contact, if you see a property online that you like the look of, speak to, generally we advise a mortgage broker, have the initial conversation, make sure that you can actually get the mortgage and get the AIP, agreement in principle certificate, which you can show to the estate agent. Again, not everyone watching this video will be a first-time buyer, but if you're a first-time buyer with no backwards chain, and if you've got an agreement in principle ready to go, confirming that you're good for the mortgage, generally an estate agent they'll take you seriously. They'll like to see that. Again, they really are desperate to get it through nice and quickly. So if you show that you've got everything ready to go, you're organised, there's no chain, they're going to look at you more favourably than if you haven't organised your mortgage, or if you're a bit more of a tricky client, or if you're having to sell, because again, that increases the number of properties in the chain. Do you know the next point?
Yeah.
Go on then.
Asking lots of questions.
Are you asking?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of asking you and telling people.
Yeah.
So asking questions. So you can be quite direct with these questions. Ask them things like what? How many viewings have they had? What have they got coming up? Have they had any offers? Is there movement in the price?
And these questions generally, sorry, just to be clear, are to the estate agent. So the estate agent selling the property, who are generally going to be speaking to you and showing you around the property, they're the ones you're going to be interacting with. So ask them as many questions as you can.
This could be during the viewing, this could be just after the viewing. But at that sort of time frame, isn't it? Yeah.
You're potentially going to be buying a property of, a couple of £100,000, maybe more, maybe less. You are within your rights to ask whatever you want and that they should, legally do their best to answer you honestly and correctly. Ask if the seller would be willing to go below the asking price, because again, the estate agent, they're going to be realistic. They know what market they're working in. They want to sell the property, even if it means they've got to knock 10 grand off the asking price. So often they'll give clues, won't they?
Yeah.
So ask as many questions as you can, because again, they will give you information and they will give you clues which potentially do help you.
Do you go for the next one?
I can't remember what it is.
Okay.
Oh no, all right then, I'll go.
Yeah, all right.
You've spoken enough.
Yeah, I know.
Go on then.
View lots of properties. So you can't view too many, really. If you're looking around at properties, even if you see one you love and you see others that may be similar but you don't quite think you like as much, no harm in viewing that second, third, fourth one, one long weekend or whatever you want to do, because it gives you comparisons, if nothing else.
For negotiations.
Yeah. It gives you practice on viewing. If you're viewing with multiple agents and you view for the first time, it's your first ever property, it's quite nervous. You might not be confident to ask those questions we just talked about. You might feel a little bit overawed by the whole situation. The second time you feel less awed. Less awed. You know what I mean. It helps.
How often do we see people just fall in love with the first property they see? And they, and again, in a seller's market, when interest rates were, rock bottom, and there were loads of people looking to buy when the temporary stamp duty holiday, the market was so busy that maybe you couldn't view 10 properties, because by the time you viewed the third one, the first one had been sold. But again, at time of filming, the market isn't that busy. So you maybe can afford to view as many as you can. Don't just fall in love with the first one. It might be you end up sticking with the first one, but at least look at as many properties in the area that kind of tick the boxes and the criteria within the price range that you're interested in. Really, really important, like Kai said, for comparisons of price, to make sure you're getting a fair price. And because you don't know the right property for you until you've looked at all of them. I remember when I was looking, I nearly offered on, I think the second one I saw, you just get so caught up in it, don't you? That you just, and then luckily I looked at a couple more and ended up going for the last one I looked at, and I'm so glad now that I just looked at those extra couple.
I bought the first one.
Yeah, exactly. But you were young, weren't you? You didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah.
The final couple of points. So a lot of it you are going to have to, we can't be there to hold your hand whilst you are negotiating. So you are going to have to make a judgment on some of this, but don't always go straight in and offer your maximum. That might seem obvious, but generally start, if you think there's kind of a foot in the door there, start lower. The estate agent legally has to make send the offer to the seller. So nothing can come, nothing wrong can come from going in a bit lower, especially in a market where there aren't as many people interested in the property. If you start right at your maximum, there's a good chance they're going to try and squeeze a few more thousand out of you. But on the flip side of that, you need to know where to draw the line of how low to offer. If you come in, half of the asking price, then they're just not going to take you seriously, and you're going to get to a point where maybe they might lose faith in you. So it is striking that balance, but if you think there's room there, always feel free to go in lower. I think they're the main points. Again, as we've said, a lot of it is going to come down to making a judgment at the time. If you've had a consultation with your broker by that point, feel free to bounce it off them and let them know what you're thinking of doing, and they can give you their opinion. Again, they can't say, with any negotiation, there's always risk if you're offering below the asking price that you will lose the property. So you have to accept that there is always risk, but you can bounce that off your broker. We really hope that you're successful with whatever offer you make. Hopefully you can get in under the asking price, but again, if you need anything, just get in touch and we will do our best to help you. See you next time.